Hello everyone and welcome to the second part of the Voice of Ultras, the history of Delhi football with Mr. Novy Kapadia. Our boys Aditya and Dipesh had a candid conversation with Mr. Kapadia, and in part 2 of this podcast, you would listen how the partition of India affected Delhi football.
Thank you so much for being here for a second part of the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you again. So in the last podcast, you described that glorious run of Delhi team in the Santosh Trophy. So sir, we wanted to know more about the players, and like you've written in your book that some of the players went to Pakistan after the partition. So how did the club deal with it, and tell us about the players who left for Pakistan?
Yes, the Delhi team and Delhi football was severely jolted by the trauma and, the riots and violence of partition. I have counted at least 7 players from the 1944 Delhi's victorious team who migrated to Pakistan. They were defenders Munawar Hafiz of Mughal Sports Club, midfielders Afzal and Ahmad Hassan of Mughal Sports Club, midfielder Hamid of Government of India Press Football Club, the 2 players from Union Football Club, Habib and Roshan Ali, both forwards on the right flank, and the reserve forward also from Mughal Sports Club, Salim. So these 7 I have counted. I think only Usman Jan stayed back. And so Delhi football, the clubs were also jolted because these are the well-known players who left. Several others also left, including officials. So a lot of the old Delhi clubs had to revamp themselves. In 46 and 1947, the league could not be held. In 1948, full credit to these 2 Bengali gentlemen who went out of their way to revive the Delhi Football Association. J.K. Dasgupta as secretary and Kartik Mukherjee as president. They took over Delhi football and helped in Delhi football, making a comeback. J.K. Dasgupta was the secretary and Kartik Mukherjee. So they sort of got the clubs again together, and young men became champions that year in 1948. Raisina Sporting won in 49 and Simla Youngs in 1950. So gradually Delhi football got revived. The standards still remain very good despite loss of a lot of the Muslim players who migrated to Pakistan, because there was a well-organized league structure, very competitive league structure which went on for 4 months, and the clubs continued training. So Delhi did exceptionally well. In both 1950 and 1952, Delhi reached the semi-finals of the Santosh Trophy, which was a remarkable feat. In fact, in 1950 at Calcutta, for 2 successive days, Delhi held mighty Hyderabad to a draw. And now see, Hyderabad had players like Aziz, Fruval, Noor Muhammad, Moin, Laik, Jamal. These were all legends. Several of them played for India. Moin, Noor and Aziz were members of the Indian team which won the gold medal in the 1951 Asian Games. And Hyderabad football was on the rise. But Delhi, especially their defenders, Kansham and Guzari, were absolutely outstanding. Delhi unearthed a unique goalkeeper during those days called Hardev Sahai. Now, Hardev Sahai was a protege of Usman Jan. He came from the Sitaram Bazar area, and he used to cycle over or walk over to the Minto Road side, the Government of India Press, where there were vast open fields, and there is where he learnt his football. His family got him married at a very young age. He was a class 9th student when he got married. But both his in-laws and his family kept encouraging him to play football. In 1950, at the Santosh Trophy, he was absolutely outstanding against Hyderabad. You see, in those days, there were no penalty shootout or anything. So drawn matches were replayed. 2 days, Delhi held Hyderabad to a draw. In fact, on the second day, Delhi was leading 1-0. It was only a great run and cross by international Moeen that enabled Hyderabad to equalize through Mahmood. Finally, on the third day, they won by a solitary goal. Delhi took so much out of Hyderabad, the toll of the semi-final, that in the final, Hyderabad were trounced 5-0 by Bengal. So Delhi had a very formidable team. In 1952, the Santosh Trophy National Championships were held in Bombay, and Delhi beat Hyderabad in the quarterfinals. That was arguably one of Delhi's finest victories, because by 1952, Hyderabad was a power center rivaling Bengal in Indian football. Moeen, Aziz, Noor Mohammed, and all Olympians, Helsinki Olympians like and Fruval were internationals. Jamal was an international. So that Hyderabad team, coached by the late great S.A. Rahim, had 6 to 7 international, yes, including Suse Jr. And Delhi upset them in the quarterfinals. So that was a remarkable win. And there's a great story after that win. W.P. Lynch of Simla Youngs had taken over as secretary of the Delhi Football Association. He was the manager of the Delhi team at the Santosh Trophy in Bombay in 1952. Now, several of the senior players, Ganjam and others, they all went out celebrating. A movie and a couple of drinks. A few junior players were left in the room. Now, Lynch was a very considerate father figure, like administrator, an excellent administrator. He, in fact, developed on the work of Kartik Mukherjee and J.K. Das Gupta and put Delhi football on a sound footing. So he went up to the boys and said, well, what do you all want to do? Now, Sunil Ghosh, who became later on secretary of Delhi Soccer Association in 1980s, he was making his debut for Delhi. He was a very compact midfielder, wing half, to play for Raisina Sporting. To Sunil Ghosh said, sir, let's have ice creams. And Bombay, those days, there was something unique. They started having mango ice creams. So these few boys, along with Lynch, they went out in search of mango ice creams. I think they got some, or some had strawberry ice creams. But that is how they celebrated, the younger players. Delhi played mighty Bengal in the semi-finals and lost. But remember, Bengal won the Santosh Trophy 4 years in a row during that time, 49, 50, 51, 52. So Delhi gave a very commendable performance. And the loss of the Muslim players due to partition didn't affect the team. A lot of new players came up. From New Delhi Heroes, from Raisina Sporting, and even the old Delhi clubs got revived. Mughals had the biggest setback. They in fact didn't win the Delhi League again till 1995. But young men got revived, and as I said, won in 48. And from 52 to 56, New Delhi Heroes became a formidable team and won 4 years in a row, the best sequence of wins by any Delhi club. So the 50s belonged to New Delhi Heroes and young men, and the great rivalry between New Delhi clubs and Old Delhi clubs started. Simla Youngs also won twice in 1949 and 1951. They were also a team consisting mostly of government officials, and W.P. Lynch organized them very well. And so the competitive nature of the Delhi Football League helped Delhi become a formidable force even in the Santosh Trophy. That has been Delhi's best performance in the Santosh Trophy, of course, besides winning in 44, because after that Delhi has never reached the semi-final of the Santosh Trophy.
Okay.
So, sir, as you know that because of partition, there must have been some sort of a rift between the communities. So, we'd like to know how did football help in bridging the gap between different communities after the partition? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. Full credit goes to very able administrators. In fact, Indian sports needs such administrators. People like J.K. Dasgupta, Karthik Mukherjee, J.W. Lynch of Simla Youngs, they tried to soothe the hurt feelings and persuaded the various communities to come back on track. Love for football overcame everything. Because the league was organized regularly,
Yes, sir.
so there was something to aim for. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there was no other form of entertainment. So gradually, though the feelings did exist, people used to go home early, there was tension, certain areas, certain members of certain communities didn't venture after dark.
So
But ultimately, love for football.
yeah, it must have been
everything.
tough for clubs like Young Men and those old Delhi clubs to, stand up from that. They eventually did stand up, as you mentioned, but it must have been tough to, bring those communities together again.
Yes, it was tough, but they revived. There was still an ample Muslim population in Old Delhi. The butcher community, the Qureshi family, were well established. So gradually they pumped in money to the club they loved, which was their legacy. And as I said, Mughals took long to revive. Crescent Osmania faded away. The New Delhi clubs started coming up. So there was a shift in balance of power. That there is absolutely no doubt. That independent India saw the rise of the New Delhi clubs. And New Delhi Heroes, who used to practice in the Talkatora Gardens and had lots of very talented young players, those in the university and other players, they became, and other institutions, they became a very formidable team. Some of the prominent players of New Delhi Heroes, Ambasuri, he started for Simla Youngs, then played for New Delhi Heroes. Krishan Thapar, who became a famous coach in NIS Patiala. T.N. Lau, the low-class now, tall, sturdy, well-built defender. He was 15 years old when he first played for Delhi. He had very long kicks. And so a lot of new young players developed, and New Delhi Heroes also practiced regularly. And so Ram Swaroop Kalia, he was outstanding. He also played for Railways. So a new look, Delhi football came up. The domination of old Delhi clubs slowly subsided. Young men kept the flag flying. As I said, they became champions several times. New Delhi Heroes dominated. They were 6 times champions in the 50s, but young men also won in 57, in 48, in 1950. And so a new era sort of gradually came about in Delhi football. Reconciliation took place, and as I said, the administration was excellent. People like J.W. Lynch, and he was succeeded by S.K. Ghosh. That was the golden period of Delhi football from 1953 to 1968. S.K. Ghosh was the organizing secretary, the honorary secretary. He ensured that in the summer months, the Delhi League, Senior Division, A Division, B Division, took place regularly. The Senior Division matches were played at the Corporation Stadium, the Delhi Gate Stadium, which we now call Ambedkar Stadium.
Yes, sir.
Gate money was there, very nominal, 10 paisa, and later on 25 paisa. From that nominal gate money, we built up the coffers of Delhi Football Association, and the referees got paid. The local press, news media, both English and Hindi, were very supportive. Summer months there'd be very little sport, so local league got massive coverage, and the Delhi Football League became a part of the calendar of sports events in Delhi. Full credit to S.K. Ghosh, because he ensured continuity. Continuity is very important, and his paperwork was very good. He was a journalist, so he wrote well. His liaison work with the local corporation offices was excellent. He ensured that they got the stadium at a very nominal rent. He organized the league well, and managed to continue this reconciliation between the two major communities, and the rivalry extended to the football field. The older sort of feelings of distrust and hatred of partition gradually withered away as the communities realized that you have to get on with life, and football was a welcome outlet. So the golden period of Delhi football is through S.K. Ghosh. For 15 years, he was like a mighty colossus. Small man, short man, in his big black-rimmed glasses. He was everything. He could make the draw. He would choose the referees. I give you a wonderful example. He was very conscious of the type of referees he wanted. Now, K.G. Kakkar, who was a member of the 1944 Delhi team which won the Santosh Trophy, Kakkar was known as a very fit, no-nonsense referee. In a tough match, people wanted Kakkar as a referee. Now, I think the tough matches in those days were generally on a Sunday between an old Delhi club and a New Delhi club. Say New Delhi Heroes versus Young Men, or Simla Youngs versus Moguls. So those were like battle of attrition. So on one of those, they were always held on the weekend. Kakkar was to be the referee in one of those matches. The referee who was to be there fell sick or something. Now, see, this is the way S.K. Ghosh worked. He used to go on a cycle. He cycled across to Kakkar's house in Karol Bagh, Arya Samaj wrote and said, KG Kakkar, Delhi football needs you. We have to have you today. He said, oh boss, please, let me be today. I'm taking my wife out for a picture, a cinema. Those was a great outing in those days. To go for a cinema to Connaught Place cinema, like Regal or Rivoli or Plaza, was a major outing. So Sunil S.K. Ghosh said, where are the tickets? Show me. He showed him the tickets. S.K. Ghosh pocketed the tickets and said, I'll take your wife. You go to the ground. He said, she won't be deprived. I will give her whatever you want, Coca-Cola, popcorn. She can enjoy the movie, but you are needed on the ground. KG Kakkar accepted with a wry smile. So this is the type of administrative acumen of S.K. Ghosh. He was a remarkable man. I also started playing when he was secretary. You see, he used to conduct transfers. He knew players by name. He was a complete all-rounder. You don't get people like him now. He could make the draw, fix the referees. In this match, we need such a referee. He looked after the finances. He ensured communal harmony, made sure the crowds, they cheered. There were at times referees were attacked, but he had the stature to ensure that violence didn't go beyond boundaries. In important matches, police used to be called. And so it became a wonderful atmosphere. And one must remember Delhi used to be very hot in the summer months. And for a lot of the old Delhi crowd, those evenings at Delhi Gate was, like an escape. Green fields, open space, slight breeze blowing. You had a cold drink or tea, you gossiped. You stayed away from your small homes. So gradually people accepted that football is an outlet for happiness, for survival, for reconciliation. So I give full credit. These men are not acknowledged, and I wish the current Delhi Football Association, Delhi Soccer as they call themselves, Kartik Mukherjee, J.K. Dasgupta, J.W. Lynch of Simla Youngs and S.K. Ghosh. These are the people who got Delhi football back on its foot, back on its feet, and above all, what was very important in those days, broke the strife. Communal harmony was restored. There was rivalry on the football field, Old Delhi clubs, New Delhi clubs, but slowly that disappeared. Old Delhi clubs would take Hindu players also. The young men, in fact, had several top-class Hindu players. When they won in 1965, Varinder Singh Bist was the main scorer. So it's these four men who are absolutely unique, and it is they who revived Delhi football.
Definitely wish that the football in Delhi get more people like them. And so it's in your book Barefoot to Boots, we read this very fascinating fact that even after the partition, there were a lot of clubs from Delhi that used to regularly cross the border and play exhibition matches in Pakistan. So can you tell us how that experience was, and were there any tensions between the two clubs that used to play exhibition matches in Pakistan?
Yes, those were basically nostalgia trips. Lot of the players from Delhi had left for Pakistan, Lahore, Rawalpindi, Karachi. In fact, the Mughal Sports Club was started in Pakistan. And so they felt a longing to, meet with their teammates of the past. So as things settle down after the trauma of partition and about 4 or 5 years after a partition and independence, invitations were extended to basically 4 or 5 clubs. Young men, Mughals. Mughals the most because, as I mentioned, 4 of the Mughal players of the victorious 1944 team migrated to Pakistan and several others.
Yes, sir.
And then Union Football Club and above all Frontier Football Club. Now Frontier is very unique that this club consisted of players, all of whom in the 1950s had migrated from what is now West Pakistan. Rawalpindi, Peshawar, Lahore, from the frontier area. They had resettled in Delhi in places like Shakti Nagar, Malka Ganj, Kamla Nagar, Kingsway Camp, all these resettlement colonies which the Indian government had set up after the influx of people from Western Pakistan, Western Punjab, the refugee colonies that were set up, and some were also in the Government of India flats near Minto Road. So Frontier Club had majority of their players who had played and grown up in Pakistan. And so they were very keen to go and visit. Animosity between the players did not exist. And so Frontiers to also be regularly invited. Now these would be 2-week tours, 3-week tours, sometimes summer months, generally not in the summer because the Delhi League was on,
Yes.
often in the winter months, and the players went by train. The hospitality was immense. O.P. Malhotra, who later on became a distinguished sports teacher in PGDV College in University of Delhi. I knew him very well. He used to coach at the Delhi University football team for which I played. And O.P. Malhotra used to tell us stories. He was a very fine, sturdy fullback who played for Frontier Football Club. Now, O.P. Malhotra used to say that we used to all go as a team. He says one of the trips, as I was boarding the train, the families had suffered because of partition. He says my father gave me a 10 rupee note only and said, "Sorry son, that's all, please survive." And he said it was no problem because the players looked after very well. They stayed in big dormitories with attached bathrooms and toilets, and you stepped on beddings on the floor, or there were a few charpais put up. And he said the club provided everything. If there was no match in the evening, there would be light practice. Then they would come for breakfast, and for breakfast, if it was winter months, the club provided eggs, tea and toast and fruit. If it was earlier, if it was little hot, there would be lassi and grapes and other fruits. Then he said people, those who migrated from Delhi, they would come over for gossip sessions. So people would sit and talk. A lunch would invariably, they would bring some with them. After a sort of siesta in the afternoon, if there was no match, they would go sightseeing, or the Frontier Football Club players would go back to the localities which they had left. If it was in Lahore, or they would take a day or two off and go to Peshawar and go back to their ancestral homes, meet the people there. They were always welcomed. They were always treated very well. And that's how the tour went. Friendly matches were played in the evening, and it was a wonderful atmosphere. And afterwards, in the night there would be a dawat, and different institutions would invite them. They would talk about old times. In Lahore, some of them went shopping to Anarkali, the famous bazaar. And some of the things, they were like, Delhi se aaye ho mere dost. So they would be given free. There was great bonhomie, and there was a lot of respect. And as I said, there was a Mughals club formed there. Usman Jan was a legend. In fact, after he passed away, there was an Usman Jan memorial tournament also in Lahore. So this went on in the 1950s. Young men, Mughals, Union, Frontier, they were invited. Not the New Delhi clubs, because there was not so much interaction. But then as the border situation and all became tense, sadly these tours of goodwill and fraternity subsided. It became difficult, to get permission to travel. Earlier they would go by train, cross the Wagah border, and go and play in Lahore. Matches were friendly matches. It was not so much the competitiveness of the match as to revival of being able to meet old friends, discuss what had happened. The Muslim players of Old Delhi would inquire about the friends they had left behind, the locality. The players from Frontier went to see their ancestral homes. Those who knew players from Young Men or Mughals, they went and met the older players. So it was just a great atmosphere. And, the DCM football tournament, which had started, they used to also, initially in the 50s, call one or two teams from Pakistan. But then that also stopped after, the sort of tension started in the early 60s, which led to the 65 war. So in the 50s, that was a regular feature in Delhi football. These clubs going across and being looked after very well. As O.P. Malhotra told me that he says, 10 rupees kya? He says, I bought back 5 rupees. There was practically nothing to spend on it. Food was provided, entertainment was provided. If we had to see a movie, we were taken. And most of the time we sat and gossiped about local football. Often small things from the shop. The shopkeepers wouldn't buy. He says, I just got a few things for my mother and, brothers and sisters. So he says, I brought back 5 rupees. It used to just be a wonderful experience and helped further in reviving, forgetting the traumas of partition, reviving bonhomie. Football was a great leveler, and Delhi football, though it doesn't have such a distinguished record like Bengal or Hyderabad, but was always very active. And the two communities that way, by these exchange of tours, helped in removing prejudices, removing tension amongst players. And, it's very important when you actually meet people, all the built-up inner prejudices start declining. So indirectly, these tours of friendship played a major role in creating communal harmony in Delhi football.
That's absolutely amazing to hear, and football has always had that power of uniting people. So with this, we'll wrap up our second podcast. Thank you for being here and sharing your invaluable experiences. and we hope to have you here for the third part of our podcast, sir.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and hope to have your company in part 3, where we will be discussing the golden 60s of Delhi football. See you there.